that delayed me getting to where I wanted to get to quicker, because I kept thinking about, oh, well, what if? And I would not have done that. That'd be number one. Number two, I'd say I've learned about health. How can you pour from an empty cup? I'm still learning myself. I still have a number of health issues, but I thought if I can just give, but eventually you give up yourself and not through choice. So that one, you've got to prioritize having some downtime, having time to put back into yourself. And number three would definitely have been, you can't please everybody.
Was that the hardest one?
That's the hardest one. It still is a hard one.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Have It All podcast. I'm Dr. Kerstin. I'm your host, a former cardiac surgeon, now portfolio career strategist, and your gateway to Have It All. And today I'm joined by another guest, which I'm very happy about. And I'm so curious to hear more about her story. I guess it's really worthwhile listening. And maybe she tells us what holding a mic for Elon Musk has to do with her story. So without any further introduction, we dive right in with Sarah Brooks from the Sparkle Foundation. So Sarah, very welcome and great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I did a brief introduction because you can do it far better than I am, because when we first met and you told your story, I was in awe. And so I thought you can tell your story far better than I can. So yeah, who are you and what are you doing?
Who am I? Okay, I'll give you a shorter version, because otherwise we might be here all day. I mean, I'm British, you can probably tell from the accent, but I moved to boarding school for the final 2 years of my education, and I became the first northerner at a southern school. And why is that relevant in the story is that my life has seemed to be, I've become the first of a lot of things. But when I was 18, I was curious to travel the world, as a lot of young people are. Most people follow a natural go to somewhere, Australia, New Zealand, Thailand. I said, let the gods decide where I'm going, and closed my eyes and pointed at a map, and my finger landed on Malawi. Okay. I remember calling my parents and saying, I'm off to Malawi, and my dad was like, where's that?
Yeah, that's what I probably would have said.
And I said, it's in Africa. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah. And he said, are you sure? I said, I'll find a way. And I found a friend at school, had a cousin there, and off we went. Volunteered in an orphanage for 3 months, and 6 weeks into my stay, I'd been staying with a local lady, and she was giving me their food, and I was having it for breakfast, lunch and dinner, and truthfully I was too polite to say, A, I really don't like this, and B, it's not agreeing with me. And I don't know, I mean, you'll say as a surgeon, you know what's going to happen if you keep feeding yourself the same diet over and over again. And the inevitable happened. I ended up unconscious, rushed to the local hospital, and the one doctor that was there said, yep, we need to operate, but there's a 96% chance of HIV because we've got no sterile equipment because our donation from overseas hasn't come in. And being honest, I'm sort of a general practitioner. I've never done the surgery before, but I'm prepared to give it a go. So I'm out cold.
Very trustworthy.
I'm out cold at this point. But my poor friend, and 18 back then, we didn't have phones or anything. Is like, well, what's the other choice? He said, go to a private hospital. A private being it had a bed 2 hours away, but she might die before she gets there. So he made that decision, one I'm unbelievably grateful for today. And I went to the private hospital, had the surgery, spent about 3 weeks there. And he came to visit me and was like, Sarah, when we were at the local hospital, there were 300 people waiting in the queue to see that one doctor. And when they saw you, ultimately, because you're white, they prioritised you to be seen first. And you were the doctor for 2.5 hours. When we came out, some of the people in the queue who were waiting, who'd walked miles just to see the one doctor, who were children, had died while you were being seen too. And I just remember thinking, that's it. I looked at my skin and I said, how do we live in a world where the pigmentation in our skin can dictate whether we live or die? I have been born into privilege, and I've either got a choice, I run away from it, or I do something about it. And I said, I'm going to have to use it to my advantage to help others. So I said, right, I want to make a difference to at least one child's life. I had no idea what that looked like. There was just a line in the sand and said, let's go for it. And that was where Sparkle started. And we're now sort of 17 years on past that, and it's been a roller coaster, but most people will say the why. That's the why. And my life has had many twists and turns. I moved to Dubai. The corporate job enabled me to fund the organization. I was told so many times, no, don't do it. And then, as you said at the start, 2015 was probably another light bulb moment of, I had it all. I had, as quite literally, for what from the outside world would be. I had the car, I had the apartment, I was earning more money than any 25-year-old that I knew. Had 4 promotions within 2 years. Everything that my family could have wished for in terms of their daughter achieving something. I was living that life. And we launched Tesla here in the region as part of the company I was with. Elon Musk was there, and I was given the chance to hold the microphone doing the Q&A with some of the journalists. And at the end, he said to me, is this what you want to do with your life? I was like, what's that? Because I didn't know what he was referring to. And he said, hold microphones for celebrities. I was like, absolutely not. Like, I'm actually supporting children in Malawi. I've got a charity. Thought maybe this could be my big opportunity. And he just said, one piece of advice to you, make your money first and help afterwards. And I went home that night and we lost a child from diarrhea. And I remember thinking, how can I have been with the world's richest man in the afternoon, and by the evening we'd be losing a child from something that's $1. It doesn't make sense. And I said, actually, yeah, I've got it all, but what I don't have is a feeling, and a feeling that money is not going to be able to ever pacify. So I quit the job and I moved to Malawi full time. I registered Sparkle officially in the UK, and from 2015 it became the start of a very different journey. And we're now 10 years on from that moment I made that decision. We've supported 20,000 lives in Malawi. We've built a model that is unique for grassroots charities, that is scaling and hopefully will be across Africa in the next 5 years. We've got an aim of impacting 100,000 lives. And I think I'm living testimony that one person can make a difference. And now it's a global movement. We're registered in the UK, here, the US, and in Malawi. Our youngest volunteer is 4. Our eldest is 83. This is no longer about Malawi. This is about helping people find purpose. And like you said, you can have it all, but if you haven't got the one thing that as human beings is driving us forward, then what's it all for anyway?
That's such an amazing story. I get goosebumps every time you tell it, because I think that's kind of a prime example of really going after your dreams. And I want to rewind a bit because I know that you are a very competitive woman and very ambitious. You played professional sports, and then obviously you were a high achiever at your corporate job as well. So maybe going back to that one point where you said that was on the same day, but like really thinking about, okay, I have to do Sparkle full time, or I have to give it my all and not having the corporate job, and then actually to doing it. I think there might be a little bit of journey in there, isn't it?
It was hard because I think when you've got that drive, I've had it since a child. Like it's not always wanting to win, but I've always wanted to be my best. You hear this question all the time of like, who are your role models? Mine has always been the better version of myself, because I know what I'm capable of, but time is my biggest issue because I just don't have enough of it to achieve everything that I believe I'm capable of doing. So I've always just, when, you're in a corporate job, and I was there and I was driven and I was pushing forward, but there's a ceiling. There's always a ceiling of when you work for someone else, first of all, where you can go. And second of all, if you're feeding people's pockets, which when I was in the PR industry, you're basically being paid to make people look good and promote them as much as you can. And then you've had an experience like I've had, where you've been on the ground, and Malawi was one of 24 countries that I travelled across the year where I've seen firsthand real life, where we've not become exposed to. Something hits differently, and it's a feeling that if I could bottle up, I'd be a billionaire, truthfully, and sell it, that you're constantly then chasing. And I think making that decision was helped by everybody telling me, you can't do it. The UK government said, don't even waste your time, don't even bother. My parents said, you'll be mad, the charity will never, ever make it. And I just had a moment where I was like, you know what? I believe enough that I can do something and I can do something different, that I've got to take that step. And I think we're so in our own heads that if you allow something to dwindle for too long, you can talk yourself out of anything. Yeah. Whereas me, I have to make the decision and then think about the consequences afterwards. Some have been good decisions, some have not been so great, but
that's life.
The reality is that was one of them, that I found out about that child having diarrhea, and I think within 2 hours I'd sent my resignation. And I knew that if I'd sent it and then I put all an advert on Dubizzle for all of my furniture, there was no going back. And then the minute I saw it in written kind of paperwork, and I think anyone that's competitive, if you put it out to the world and you say, I'm going to do it, you're doing it.
Absolutely.
And that's what keeps you accountable.
Yeah. No, I can totally relate to that, although it has taken me 3 days, I think, to hand in my notice. So it was just 2 hours for you. So you bet me with that. But I can totally relate to. But what I find really interesting, and people have asked me that a lot too, how were you so sure about yourself that you will succeed? Because you were talking like, okay, I knew I could do that. And I think that feeling, I have it for some of my things I do as well. I just know that when I succeeded in cardiac surgery, I can succeed in consulting as well. I just knew it. There was no sign whatsoever that being brilliant in operating on children's heart will be great in consulting too. But I just knew that it will work out. So where does that come from?
I think environment has a lot to say for it, like how I was raised. Like, I got 2 older brothers. They are 6 and 7 years older than me. My mum had 6 children in between that sadly were either miscarriage or stillborn. So I was a fertility baby. She gave up everything for me, and lived with me like every single day. I wasn't even able to go on the school bus because she wanted to spend time with me. But the competitiveness in my brothers meant that I saw them and I just wanted to be like them. But there was a huge age gap and also a gender problem. So I'll give you an example that maybe resonates with how my life's ended up. They were always playing table tennis in the garage, and they said, I kept knocking on the door from being 5 or 6. Can I play? No. You can't even give us a game. No. Some people would have gone, right, table tennis isn't for me. I'll just go and play with my friends, or I'll, do something different. Instead, I secretly went out to the garage every night, put the table tennis up half and played myself for a year until I knew I was good enough. And then once my dad said, just give her a chance, when I was around 8 or 9, and I beat them. And I remembered then that there was something in me, that there's that burning fire that if you do, A-type personalities, and you look at sports stars, there's something within us. And I think my dad has always said to me, and my mum, we believe in you. There's nothing you can stop yourself from doing. And then my schooling and my education has also facilitated that mindset. So I've just played into that, and it pains me. If people could see themselves with the eyes that I see them, I think they would achieve so much more and be so much happier. Why I'm saying that is because I believe everyone has got the potential to be so much, and yet they put limitations on themselves because of self-doubt, and especially females. And that's what I want to change, because everyone's got the ability to do what I've done, what you've done, if they just put their mind to it, and discipline and kind of training and hard work. We don't get where we are without all the things that go on behind closed doors. And people often want the success but don't want the work that goes into it.
Absolutely. So when you sold your furniture and ended up like, okay, I'm doing that, did you have a plan by then, or how
Nope.
did you go on?
I got on a plane. I landed in the village and I was like, I'm going to stay with these people. And I remember my dad's words to me was, you can't fall back on us. Like, you're making this decision that you can't just ring for help. And our pride, truthfully, was like, I'm never making that phone call. And the first 9 months, it was really difficult. I found out one of the people I was staying with was stealing from me. And there was a family, I'd known them for 6, 7 years. And everyone would have said, just ring your family and they can pay for you to stay in a hotel. No, I was not doing it. I stayed in someone's garage. I think Roland the rat, I'd got a friend. I'd got Connie the cockroach, and I was on a mat on the floor. And I look back now and I was like, why didn't I just pick up the phone? But in reality, I went through that and I spent 3 or 4 weeks in that condition. And it's helped me shape me to the person I am today. But there are certain decisions that maybe I would have done differently for my health, because I didn't have the plan, but the plan sort of unveiled. And I had to go through that and those failings and those what if and oopsie daisy moments, because now if I look 10 years on, a lot of even me doing consultancy work is about what not to do. And if I'd not gone through that and maybe had a beautiful, Pinterest board with I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, I think what also comes with competitive personalities and drive is also we hold ourselves in such a high, we want to achieve this, that disappointment is one of the worst things that I battle with. I never want to say I'm going to be here within a month, because if I know I can't 100% be there, because I can't deal with I've let myself down and I've let everybody else down with it. So I went with no plan, just I'm going to make this work. And it took longer than I thought, but baby steps. And I think 2021 was probably the minute, so we're talking 6 years later, that eventually my parents walked into our Sparkle Gala dinner. That was our first ever one. And my dad looked at my mum and they looked at me and started crying, and they said, no, this is serious. Like, we've got to start taking this serious. This isn't a passion project that our daughters had like a crazy moment that's decided to leave it all. And the same people that were in my corporate job that I was supporting were now offering for me to work with me and saying that they'll be my client. So how full circle everything has gone.
That's amazing. And when you look back, what were kind of the maybe 3 learnings, maybe it's more, you had and you wish everyone knew?
I think don't limit yourself. Right? That's number one, because even me, I could have got to where I was sooner if I'd blocked out the noise. I limited myself, because when people say, don't do it, have you thought about this, have you thought about that? Yes, you've got to have some form of rational, what are the risks and what's not. But that delayed me getting to where I wanted to get to quicker, because I kept thinking about, oh, well, what if? And I would not have done that. That'd be number one. Number two, I'd say I've learned about health. How can you pour from an empty cup? I'm still learning myself. I still have a number of health issues, but I thought if I can just give, but eventually you give up yourself and not through choice. So that one, you've got to prioritize having some downtime, having time to put back into yourself. And number 3 would definitely have been, you can't please everybody.
Was that the hardest one?
That's the hardest one. It still is a hard one. I come from a people-pleasing family. I mean, let's take social media an example. My mum and dad have just arrived now in Dubai. Sarah, we need to talk to you about your social media. Why do you feel you need to share everything with everyone? And I was like, I'm sharing 1% of what actually goes on. Oh, we're not comfortable. People we're in our village at home. They're wondering what's going on. I said, I'm not interested in what the people we have to walk around the shops and they say, oh, we've seen Sarah's been here. And I was like, and why does that bother you? Oh, is it necessary? I said, when maybe one day you're coming to a Netflix premiere to watch the movie that maybe my life story is in, then we'll talk about that moment. But right now, what this person is, and the messages I then get in of people saying you've inspired me or you've helped me, I said, that's the audience that I'm playing into. And I don't know if you've experienced that, but it often is the people that are closest to you that have watched the journey can't see you and who you've evolved to be. And to my family, I'm still 16-year-old Sarah who, has had this wild moment that's decided to go to Malawi. Will it ever change? I don't know. But yeah, don't always think about pleasing everybody, because you won't, and you'll die trying.
And what do you do in the moments where the frustration hits, where it's like not going your way, where the people pleasing is coming and all those comments are playing up to you and you're like, oh no, it's just not.
Exercise. I think that is I'm not a very confrontational person, but I'm also a very emotional, empathetic person, not very sympathetic. So I wear my emotion on my face. So if I'm annoyed, my employees know I'm annoyed. I've got a ceiling. When you've reached the ceiling, I've got to have an outlet. And sport, competitive sport, I'm not one of those people. I wish I could be, that could just play, Connect 4 or something, just because, but I can't. Like, if I'm going to play, I'm playing seriously. I'm okay if I lose, but I'd rather not play than, I'm raising Rosanna now. She's playing cards, and I'm like, if you cheat, we're not playing. And she's like, but I want to win. I said, well, if you're going to cheat and win, then I don't want to play because I'm not interested. And I'm like, okay, I've got to remind myself she's 8, but still.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, whoa, that's tough.
But there is a way that I have been, and I think, as back to earlier, having older brothers, having come from a very competitive family, people don't want to play with me. And I've learned that in paddle. I'm now with the boys. So hopefully there'll be some ladies out there that go, you know what, we've got that. to have a good game rather than just to never mind if the ball disappears off.
Not my thing either. But I can relate, and I still have to learn something you said earlier, to stay in my lane and just compare myself to myself and to a previous version of myself, because I do play paddle and I do CrossFit a lot. And in CrossFit, I'm doing it now for 10 years. And obviously I'm not training the stuff I don't like, so I'm not getting better on that. So I have some holes in my game. But I always compare myself to others, and those are like 20 years younger. And I'm still like, so she did 10 reps. I only did 8. Oh, shit, I suck at this. And I had this moment on the weekend where we went with a cycling group, and they were slightly too fast for me. So they were going at 32K on average, and that's slightly too fast for me as long. For a longer period of time. And I was so devastated. I was so frustrated because it was so hard for me to keep up and to keep the group. And then I lost in CrossFit and was like the second to last in my CrossFit class the day before. And I was losing it, really. So I still have to learn to compare myself to my previous version and not to everyone around me. But yeah.
And are they doing all the other things that you're doing? Probably not.
I know. Rationally, I'm totally aware of that, and I'm totally aware of muscle mass and age and all of that stuff. I'm totally aware of that. But in my head, I'm probably still thinking I'm 25 and in my prime.
At least you're still doing it. So everyone said to me, play hockey again or play rugby. And I was like, I can't play again knowing that there's a little 25-year-old that's going to be so much better, because it'll just be frustrating. So I've had to find new sports that can have that competitive element, but also I can't try and be something that I'm not, because we have to take that into consideration.
Yeah, we have
even
to.
Sprinting, I'm like to Rosanna, I can just about beat her now, and I'm like, gosh, in 2 years' time I'm not going to be able to, so we'll be changing sport when that point comes.
Okay, good. Variety of sports, so you have to think about what to do then.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much. I mean, for me, sport has been integral in, and I think same with you, for part of who I am as a person. And now having a daughter, to be able to see that she loves it as well, it's a different kind of joy. But I don't want to be one of those parents that is on the side screaming. I'm hopefully now saying this publicly, that this will hold me to account, because I can't take it that seriously.
We replay it then.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're out on the soccer field, like, oh.
Yeah, what was that?
You can do better.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I think that will come, because probably because that's what I've seen with my parents, or with my mother especially, that she wasn't because she was always pushing me, not because she wanted me to be the best, but she seen my potential and wanted me to live up to that potential and really put in the work, because she's seen that I'm kind of, I don't know, in school I was a bit lazy. I could have probably be straight A's. I was still good enough to do medicine, so I was okay. I was not doing bad.
Well, but let's not exchange school reports.
But I think that she was always like that, because she knew I was capable of more if I just put in more work. But I was like, but I don't want to play volleyball. I want to do sports. I want to play the piano, and I want to do this and that. So it was always like incorporating all of my passions into my life even then.
I think it's difficult. I think there also has to be a ceiling, and that's what I've realised now. Like, most people will say to me, goodness, you've achieved more than anybody in your 35 years. And I'm like, I've barely achieved anything in comparison to what I thought I wanted to do. And then I think, where does that come from? And then even just speaking to my parents, you realise my dad will say to me, you could have been doing this. And I was like, no, I wasn't doing that. But then, okay, so now for the next 5 years, this is, and they're still in that. And I don't think you ever grow out of that as a parent, that he's still pushing me and saying, so where's the book? Where's the movie? Where's this? I'm thinking, goodness, let me just breathe a minute. And you learn some of the good things. And then I actually spoke to my dad about it the other day, and I said, look, let's just also have a moment, because even for me, I struggle to stop and go, okay, look what we have achieved. And I think that's really important. Yeah. And if the balance isn't correct between all of the good as well as the things to improve and grow on, you can also end up yourself mentally in a place that you're constantly in a hamster ball trying to get out, and you actually end up not doing any of the stuff you want to do because it's never quite good enough. You've got to start somewhere. So it's all a learning curve. And I wish I sat here and said, these life lessons, and I'll write this self-help book and I can help everybody else. But I'm learning on the job. Like, no day is the same for me. And it's a crazy life that I'm living that I don't think anyone else has walked before. So there's no manual.
No, I think so too. So with the Sparkle Foundation, because I think a lot of people probably won't have a real understanding what your day-to-day life looks like, because it's always, oh yeah, it's charity, so I throw money on it and then I'm out of that. And so what does actually your day-to-day look like a week in the life of Sarah?
Week would be, there's no day that's the same. So I'll give you a couple of comparisons. A day in Malawi, so usually I'm 5 a.m. waking up, because there's limited electricity, the chickens will wake you up and everyone's life starts at 5 a.m. You turn on the tap to see if there's water or not. You don't know if you're going to be having the shower in the bucket or not. We've been fortunate over the last 4 months we have had. I'll shower, get myself up, and now recently obviously taking Rosanna to school. School starts at 7 there, have breakfast, come back, children walk through the gates at 7:30. I always try and have that moment where I can see them coming in, because I've got to remember the why. And when you sat on a laptop for 10, 11 hours a day, when you just see them sprinting towards the gate, it's like, this is why we do what we do. And then I'm in meetings, truthfully, from about 8 till 6 most days. And whether I'm in Malawi or I'm in the UAE, it's the same situation. I just can't work out which one would I prefer, because when I'm in Malawi, I'm sat at least looking at the children. And I'm like, is this torture? Because I just want to be out there playing and doing all the things I used to do when I was on the ground and not having all this big organisation to manage. Or is it better in the UAE where I can't at least see it and then feel, I've not yet worked that one out, but I can go from writing HR policies to giving sign-off for checks for financing, to going and giving a corporate pitch, to going and sitting with some children at school, kind of encouraging them to find their purpose, to looking at a big ESG strategy for a company that wants to give 1% of their profit to an organisation. So it's so varied. And that's kind of structured with meetings, then throwing into it, Sarah, come quick, someone's collapsed outside the clinic, we need your help, what's going on? Or, oh goodness, Sarah, one of our donations has landed in the wrong place, we need you to go and negotiate, this is this, one of the cars is broken down, we need you to go and do. So you're just a constant like this, and that's the one challenge I think we have as an organisation, is that Sparkle isn't sustainable in terms of me, it's sustainable in terms of the way it operates. But unless some cloning or something's going to come into place, or I can find my successor that is actually as enthusiastic and loves it as much as me, I think it's one of the biggest challenges founders face, because the bigger Sparkle gets, the bigger the hole is I'm digging, but also the bigger the responsibility that I carry.
And those delegation.
Yeah, it's such a fine, micromanagement is not where I want to be. But then when you're the face of an organisation that gets bad press, not Sparkle, but the charity sector in general, you're trying to change that mindset. People are looking at me when they give me money thinking, we're donating to Sparkle, but it's because it's Sarah, we trust her. Yeah. So it's my money at the end of the day, that when I then make sure in Malawi it's going to where it says it is, I want to be 100% sure that when I go and stand on a stage in front of 5,000 people and I say, this is why we're different, I'm standing there 100% honest and accountable. And some of the staff find that hard, because I'm like, you know, you're a walking ambassador for Sparkle, but you're also a walking ambassador for me. And then on the other side is, do you remove me from the charity and make Sparkle stand on its own without me? But if you look at all the big charities around the world and you say Save the Children, UNICEF, World Food Programme, who was the founder? People like a story. People want that face. People want that we can relate. So I'm caught in the middle here, trying to navigate the best way through.
Probably needs to have a plan of like getting out of the day-to-day business and still being and reported to and being the face of the organization. Because I think so too. I think people relate to your why, and I think that comes very authentic and it's 100% believable and trustworthy, I think, when you tell your story and your why, and when people see what you've built in that short amount of time. And I think that's probably something that really relates to people and probably their wallets as well.
I hope, yeah. I mean, I think the chicken and egg situation, though, is getting me to be away from the day-to-day business means being able to recruit decent talent. And the charity sector, again, number one question I get asked is, do you take a salary? And how much of the administration costs are going towards the projects versus the people? Well, where in the corporate sector, A, do you ever get asked that? Or B, is anyone, if you're investing in a company, you want to invest in a company that's doing the right thing and doing it in the best way possible. Therefore, you need the best people to do it.
And so, you need, from what should you live? You need a salary to do that. That's you need to bring food on your table.
So that's a mindset change that we're also dealing with. And we will get there, but it's not just Sparkle that's alone in this. There's, the not-for-profit sector is the second most profitable sector in the world. So there are, unfortunately, people that have made a name for it, wrongly so, that we're just all put into the same bucket. But I do believe we can change that, and Sparkle will be an example to lead, especially with the way the world is at this minute in time, to lead the way and bring a light to what is a very dark situation, truthfully.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. So, Sarah, this podcast is called Have It All. So I do want to know what have it all means for you. What's your definition of have it all in your life?
Just to think back to that feeling. I think for me, having it all is a sense of peace that I know that I'm doing what I've been called to do. And faith is a huge part of my life and my journey. And for me, if God has asked me to do this, then whatever I'm asked of, I will do. And at this moment in time, that looks like being in Dubai, trying to inspire as many people as possible to find their why, to raise Rosanna in the best way that I humanly possibly can, and to be the daughter to my parents, to be the sister to my brothers, and to be the friend to my friends, and to help as many lives as possible in Malawi and the wider, to know that they're not just a number on an Excel spreadsheet, they're not just lost the geographic lottery, they actually have the same opportunity that I was given. And I will probably die trying. I can't see another way for me, because I get to wake up every day with the privilege of being able to change people's lives. So if you look at my life now, I'd say 80% of my meetings are CEOs coming and sitting with me and saying, we want what you've got. And it's crazy because they're earning 10, 15 times what I am. They're living a much better life. But what I've got is a calling and a purpose. And it's hard to find that for everybody, because we get so bogged down in the materialism in the day-to-day, especially here in Dubai. But I believe I'm living proof that everyone can find it, maybe not as extreme as what I've done. But you'll see it, and your own life is a testimony to it. You can have it all. Just don't limit yourself, and just find the right crowd of people that can help bring that out in you, and at least start somewhere.
Love that.
Yeah.
Really good. So when people now watch your podcast and think about, okay, I want to know more about the Sparkle Foundation, or I want to be part of it, or I want to be your predecessor, or I don't know, whatever. Where can they find more information? Where can they find you?
I mean, we are pretty much everywhere now. So if you head on our website, you can sign up to become a Changemaker. Our volunteers, our youngest, as I said, we start from 4 upwards. We've got set different programs. We work in schools, we work with corporates, we work with individuals, family offices, you name it. You just sign up and someone will get in touch with you. Social media, obviously, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. Just even sharing one of our posts, you're making a difference, because you're opening us up to a new network. So one of the things we've started doing is people say, we want to give, but we don't know how. I'm like, that is the best thing you can ask me, because I can profile anybody and everyone can make a difference. I don't think I can. Watch me. Challenge accepted. Our offices are in the Garden Concept on Shakeside Road. People often come, just drop in. How can we help? We get them involved. There's no one that can't do something, but it's just reaching out. And we won't be that charity that we just never hear back from, because I'm such now, whether I like it or not, in the public eye. You can find me. Dubai is not that bigger a place. So yeah, just reach out and take that step, and we'll find a way that you can help us change lives together.
Okay, brilliant. I hope a lot of our listeners and a lot of people watching will do that. And I think when they now see you, that it might be a lot of fun as well as doing good. And yeah, so Sarah, thank you very much. Thank you for being on the podcast, of sharing your story and sharing your version of Have It All. And I think probably a lot of us high-achieving women can relate to, as you said, probably not as on that big of a scale than you did, but maybe on other scales. And I hope that that story inspired people to really, if they have that thought in their mind to do something different, that they want to try something different, they just do it, and they are not scared of, oh, what other people will say, or what is it if my paycheck is not there anymore, my title is not there anymore. Because yes, we are liking a title, I know, but to be inspired to go for what they always wanted to do, or what they discovered they now want to do. So I hope that will be of inspiration, and I hope I see you in the next one.